Hi, welcome to 2020 Faith. I'm Pastor Jake, and I'm excited to bring this first installment in a series of videos, hopefully shorter in nature, but we want to handle the idea of faith in a proper way. The reason why this series is called 2020 Faith is because it is pushing back against the idea that faith is blind. Faith isn't blind, and we're gonna unpack that and many other misnomers concerning Christianity, the Bible, Jesus Christ Himself, the claims that were made, all of those things. So many times as I'm talking with people and interacting with people, I'm saddened because they're rejecting Christianity based on these fallacies, these things that just aren't true, and there's this immense attack on truth lately, and I am a lover of truth, and I am somebody who wants to preserve truth, and so I hope that you're watching these videos, whoever you are. If you're a Christian, I hope you're watching these videos and you're encouraged by the evidence of our faith, that there is reason to believe what we believe. And if you're not a Christian, I hope that it will cause you to pause and ponder and to think a little bit more carefully about why it is that you're rejecting Christianity. Now, I'm completely open for dialogue in the comments, either whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. I encourage comments and back and forth. The only thing that I would ask is that you come to me with intelligent discussion, being willing to have a back and forth. One of the things that I've noticed, especially in the recent years, is that when one person states facts or evidence and the other person doesn't like it, they then just insult said person. They'll call him a bigot or or leftard or any number of things. We've all heard these things, these back and forths, and whether either side that you're on, I'm always discouraged, because that is not a part of a mature, developing conversation. Name calling really is irrelevant unless you're 12 years old and you're doing like a back and forth. We used to have these disses, your mama jokes, and it was whoever could insult the other person the greatest is the one who won. But at some point we've become adults, and we want to have actual conversations on these things and really think them through and be challenged in our thinking and in our positions about all of these things. So we've got many videos to get into all the nuances. I want to spend this video right now talking about faith. I'm going to spend the first video on why I call this 2020 faith. That means clear vision, clearly seeing faith as opposed to blind faith. It's gotten such a bad rap, and so many people think, well, you're a Christian because that's just what you believe, and they're not a Christian because they just happen to have other beliefs, and both sets of beliefs ought to be considered equal. Well, unfortunately, that isn't the case. Some people believe in things that aren't true, and some people believe in things that are true, and those things aren't held in equal lighting. They're not held in equal footing. They're not equal. One of those, it's better to believe in stuff that's true than not to believe in stuff that isn't true. Do you have a right to believe in stuff that isn't true? Certainly. If you want to think that 2 + 2 is 6, that is your prerogative. There's no doubt about it. I'm probably going to push back on you on that, though. And it doesn't mean I don't love you. It means that I love you. And there could be some real consequences to walking around Earth not knowing simple addition. You can run into lots and lots of problems in that way, and so I want to challenge you to help you to see that the way you are viewing math is incorrect. This is in this day and age called hate and all kinds of stuff. It isn't. I'm really trying to help you to see the truth. And you might say, well, what makes you say 2 + 2 is 4 and he says 2 + 2 is 6? What makes you right and him wrong? Lots of stuff. And that's the stuff I want to point to in the series of these videos. Things of evidence and things of why Christianity isn't just an option. It isn't just what I believe or what some people believe, but that Christianity is truth. The truth. So we look at the book of Mark, for example, the Gospel of Mark, and he opens up with this statement. The beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And so it no doubt takes faith to believe in this statement. That is a bold statement. He is saying that Jesus Christ, many people say he is a wonderful man, a great man, the greatest man that ever lived, a prophet, a hippie, I've even heard. I mean, lots and lots, a really cool guy, a radical. I mean, I've heard lots and stuff about Jesus. But Mark disagrees with all of that. He says, no, he's none of that. He is the Son of God. He is co-eternal and co-equal with God himself. And that's where a lot of people go, whoa, I don't know if I'm going to get down with that. And that's where Christians, we have faith that that statement is true. But it isn't blind faith. It isn't just like, I have nothing else better to do, or I'm so dumb that I'm going to believe Mark in this instance, just because I'm just too stupid to think otherwise, or I have nothing else better to do. No. It's none of that. There is actual reason to believe in Mark. But let's first talk about this. Let's look at it this way. If I were to ask you who the first president of the United States was, you would tell me George Washington. You would tell me with absolute certainty that the first president of the United States was George Washington. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't disagree with it at all. But I'd like for you to tell me, how do you know that? How do you know that? Think through, how do I know, as a matter of fact, that George Washington was the first president of the United States? Were you there? Did you vote for him? Did you run on his campaign? Did you read it in the paper the next day? Did you go see his inauguration? How about this? Do you know somebody that was there? Do you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that was there? Chances are you don't. You weren't there. You don't know anybody that was there, and you certainly don't know anybody that knows anybody that knows anybody that was there. And the further we get away from the actual event taking place, the weaker the statement really becomes. I mean, it's a historic event. But we know that George Washington was the president of the United States because people who lived in that time and witnessed it and saw it and experienced it wrote it down. And these became ancient or historic documents, or that we have access to, that we can read and put together and analyze. And then once we've decided that these historical documents are true, we then put them into our education system. And so a lot of us didn't analyze or go over, or maybe haven't even read any of these historical documents, but we sat down in the classroom, and there was a person at the front of the classroom who verbally told us that George Washington was the president of the United States. And then they bolstered that by giving us a book, a history book, and the author of the history book bolstered what our teacher said, right? That he was, in fact, the president of the United States. And there was all this all these different historical things about him and the time and what he did for our country and all of these things. And so we now say that George Washington was the president of the United States, but we're saying that based on faith. We have faith in our teachers. We have faith in the authors of history books. We have faith in the scholars who have gone over these historical documents. We have placed our faith. Most of us, I'm assuming, I'm talking about you, have not sat there and went out and searched out these historical documents on your own and went through the process of determining their fallacy or righteousness or any of that stuff. I'm assuming you probably wouldn't even know where to begin if you wanted to. No, you just took it on faith. And it's not blind. There's really, really good reason to believe that George Washington is the president of the United States. And so we look at Mark's statement here. We would maybe deny Mark in this statement. We would say, Mark, you are inaccurate. You're wrong. about that statement, but that would be foolish. That would be like me denying the historical documents. I would read the historical documents of George Washington, of people who were actually there, and bolster myself as more of an authority to decide what George Washington, who he was and what he did, than the people who were actually there based on the historical documents. It's just not a wise thing to do. That doesn't make you smart. If anything, I mean, let's leave it at that. It doesn't make you smart. We sometimes bolster our intelligence by looking down on the gospel writers. And I always think, like, you know, that's just not a wise thing to do. We should at least examine who the gospel writers are. Who is John Mark? Is he somebody that lived in Jesus' time? Is he somebody who would be able to report to us with some accuracy who this Jesus Christ was? And is what he wrote here in the Gospel of Mark trustworthy, worth our consideration? So over the next few videos, and we're going to break these up so they're not super long. There's a lot to cover. So we're just going to take it one little bite at a time. We're going to look at first. We've handled now that faith isn't blind. There's vision to faith. There's reason for faith, and all of us operate on some element of faith, whether it comes to a deity or just even common American history. We are all operating on faith. What we know, the information we have, the knowledge we have, is faith based. There is enough evidence and enough reason for us to believe in the historic facts that we have been taught and teach our children. And we know that about faith. So I'm not denying that it doesn't take faith to believe this statement of Mark that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I'm not denying that it takes faith. What I'm saying, it takes the same faith to believe that it does to believe that George Washington was the first president of the United States. And I can bolster and say I believe Mark when he says that for the same reason that I believe my teacher when he or she tells me that George Washington was the president of the United States. And I can say with just as much certainty that Jesus Christ is the Son of God because I have faith in all of the evidence that surrounds it, just like I can say with great certainty that George Washington is the first president of the United States because of all of the historical evidence surrounding that. So that is the first point of the video. Faith is not blind. Hence the idea of 2020 faith moving forward. Next, we're going to look at Mark, the gospel writer of Mark. Who was he? Why are we listening to him? Was he even around when Jesus was around? Was this written hundreds of years after his death? How can we trust him? And maybe we'll even work into that video. And is it accurate? Is this what he actually said? Is this what he actually said? And when did he write this? Because all of those things, if we're going to become analytical thinkers, if we're really going to put Christianity under a scrutiny, that's what we would do. We would be careful to avoid emotion playing into our research, and we would simply look at the evidence. So we're going to look at some of the evidence. We're going to start with Mark. We're going to put him under a microscope. We're going to put him in the interrogation chair, if you will. We're going to find out who this Mark is and see, why is it that we should even consider what he has to say anything about Jesus Christ. So I hope that this is a blessing to you, and I hope that you will join me for the next video. God bless.